Good morning, guys, and welcome to the Now Morning Show, where we're getting ready for Carnival, and that means skin is in, but it's technically going to be out in the sun. And therefore, this morning, dermatologist Dr. Naomi Dolly joins us to give us some insight and safety, if we will, as to how to protect our skin as we head into the sun. Good morning and welcome to the Now Morning Show.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely necessary, because as we were talking during the break and saying, we in the Caribbean, we are accustomed to the hot sun. The more melanated of us tend to be like, yeah, we'll be fine. But skin is the largest organ in the body, so we need to know how to protect it. Yeah? I think the first thing we should start with then is sunscreen. We know SPF is a big thing, but when we look at all the numbers and the complications, what should we really be looking for?
I think that's a very good question, but I just refer to sun protection. So sunscreen in terms of a cream is one option, but I always talk about clothing as well. So we tend to ignore the fact that certain clothing and certain materials can give us protection. And sometimes I say, yes, you can wear a sun protective cream. You know, I generally say an SPF of 40 or more is considered good. Anything less, you're not really sure how much protection you're getting. And I would say, just based on how we market or how it's marketed, you have to additionally look for something that says broad spectrum coverage, or it specifically will cover UVA, because the SPF marker is only really telling you how well it blocks against the UVB rays, but not necessarily the UVA rays.
A and B,
yes, so you have to familiar with both. Yeah.
And in terms of the actual longevity of that, I mean, Carnival specifically, Monday and Tuesday, 2 long days in the sun. We're looking at needing to reapply, I imagine.
Reapplication is very important. And I also will say you want to use if you're using sunscreen to protect your skin, you want to look for things that say water resistant, because we're all going to be sweating. And if you're wearing something that's not water resistant, as soon as you start to sweat, it's going to leak right off. So generally, we're only allowed to state whether something is water resistant for 40 minutes or water resistant for 80 minutes. So even if you're wearing a sunscreen that has water resistance for 80 minutes, you're reapplying quite frequently. And this is where I tend to say maybe wearing hats, maybe wearing clothings. You know, particularly I like to tell women on Carnival Monday, try to wear something over your shoulders. You know, they have the sleeves. Those things come in very, very handy, because sometimes we don't remember when you're enjoying yourself to reapply every single 80 minutes. It's pretty difficult.
I am blown away by the 80 minutes, first of all. I am thinking to myself, I get a few hours at least.
Well, if you're not sweating, the typical thing will be every 4 hours. But as we know, by the time 8 o'clock reaches, everybody is sweating.
We sweat it down. Now, you mentioned the sunscreen, and if you're wearing something with certain SPF, are there other options beyond sunscreen? Are there other options beyond the numbers?
Yes, so we spoke about sunscreen, which is a cream or lotion base, which could also come as powder as well. We spoke about clothing. There's also oral supplementation that we don't really talk about. And the one I always recommend to my patients is something called polypodium leucotomas. And the interesting fact about that is that that came from South America, where there's some people from tribes and they would chew these leaves to give them that natural SPF. We use it a lot in dermatology in patients who have these photosensitive disorders or very high risk of skin cancer. But I tend to recommend it very widely to everyone.
And my mind is blown right now.
We're so close to the equator. We get a lot of sun. Like if you compare our UV index in Trinidad versus like Jamaica, Cuba.
And then Tobago has its own.
It's a lot higher for us. So we're always in the sun. Even if you're sitting down in your car, you're sitting down in your office with a window, there's a lot of UV or sun's rays that are going to be coming inside.
Dr. Dolly, you have shook me this morning, because I genuinely didn't know there was an oral option, and this is something that we can get over the counter, prescription. How does this work?
So if it's sometimes difficult to get locally in some of the pharmacies, but you can specifically check multiple and just ask for that particular name. But I tell patients it's not an exchange of, because they work very differently. And these things tend to work very synergistically. Another thing that works really well or helps or aids the process is a lot of antioxidants. Because when our skin gets damaged or it collects those sun's rays, our body requires antioxidants to be able to sort of relieve it or to heal itself. So having high amounts of antioxidants, particularly vitamin C, is one that we always speak about, is also very important in protecting our skin. So you also want to look for products that say, You know, there are some sunscreens that also have the antioxidants in it, and you notice that when patients use those, they have actually less burns.
Well, let's talk about those burns, because yes, you talked about the covering with clothes and the sleeves now.
Yeah.
But Tuesday, we have no sleeves, we had a backpack
Exactly.
and rubbing, and you remember, oh, that's where I got sunburns.
Exactly.
What do we do post sunburn? It's already happened. What's
It's already
good to
happened.
use?
So you really want to rapidly try to cool your skin. So sometimes just something as simple as an ice pack will help. If you want to go natural, you can use like aloe vera containing creams, but I say use aloe vera containing and not the dry aloe.
Really?
Because people tend to like to break the aloe plant,
Sure.
which has aloe vera in it, but the problem with that is that it also may have other compounds that you may react to. So we don't know whether you have a sensitivity to. So just aloe vera based products. And then if that's not enough, I tend to say just a mild topical steroid, which you can probably get a very weak one as an over-the-counter product, or you may want to have a conversation with your doctor, your dermatologist prior, so you kind of have it on hand. Believe it or not, I actually carry some topical steroid in my little fanny pack when I'm playing mouse. If I'm seeing a burn coming on, I kind of put it on. Once I see the redness coming on, I kind of put it on.
Well, I'm not surprised by that at all. I mean, you would know.
Yes.
And you could probably then tell me the difference between the types of rays, because you mentioned it briefly, but there's UVA and UVB, right?
Yeah. So once the sun emits its rays, it's a whole spectrum. But there are many different rays that it's thought to be, our skin's thought to be sensitive to.
Okay.
So prototypically, we speak about UVB, which is about 280 to 320 nanometers. And that's really responsible for your burns and triggering skin cancers. But there's also UVA, and actually there's more UVA than there is UVB. That penetrates a lot deeper. So UVA is able to penetrate regardless of how much melanin you have in your skin. And that causes a lot more aging, wrinkles, and over time, that's actually responsible for what you call delayed pigment darkening. So sometimes when you go in the sun, in 2 minutes, your skin looks brown. Right. That's UVB causing that. But then that 2 to 3 days later, where all of a sudden you're like, where's this brown
whole different shade of makeup.
That probably may have been from the UVA rays.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of protection, we are looking for things that cover
both UVA and UVB. And if you really want to get there, you also want to see visible light also being written down. Because what we've noticed is browner skin types tend to be additionally sensitive to visible light. So I would just say, instead of looking for all these individual things, if you see something that says broad spectrum coverage, it generally will cover all,
everything,
which is what might be a little bit easier for someone who's not used to purchasing these products.
I am stressed out right now. I'm not even going to lie to you, because you've given me so much information that I hadn't thought of before. And I'm thinking to myself, it's all good and well to be out in the sun and have the fun. And now I'm like, no, I want a broad brim hat, and I don't want to wear, strict bikinis anymore. As far as sunburn goes, we've got some info on the recovery side of things. But sun is good, right? Vitamin D is good for us. Let's talk about that. So, you didn't say yes.
So vitamin D has prototypically been thought to be something that you get from the sun, which is true. You need a UV index of at least 3 to be able to have vitamin D being produced, but we also have to remember that the highest source of vitamin D is not the sun. It's actually from fish oils, from things like salmon.
I knew that.
Those types of foods. Those actually give you very high amount of vitamin D, so you don't necessarily need the sun.
Right.
But what I will say the sun is very helpful for, it gives you an endorphin boost. So sometimes that feel-good feeling that people get off the sun is actually been chemically been proven. So after going in the sun, you do get a boost of endorphins and you do feel good, which people tend to equate to vitamin D, but it's not. It's two separate things going on.
Okay. Well, all right, I feel better about going into the sun now. And you've covered just about head to toe. The only thing I have as a question personally, lips. We don't really think about it too much in terms of skincare or sun care. Do we need to look at any sort of specific medicines or stuff for us?
Yes, so for your lips, definitely your lower lip is going to be more affected than your upper lip, because your upper lip tends to be protected by your nose. But again, you want to put a lip gloss or lip balm on that has an SPF in it also. You could probably base your lips with it first before, or you can put on your, like a color stay type of lipstick on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, and then you kind of replenish with this balm over and over. So that will give you like constant coverage, because time you put it on, you take one drink, it's already off, you have to put it back on again.
True, fellas, you'll have to reapply a little balm too, don't feel no ways, but we definitely appreciate some good stuff that we could use. We're repacking that fanny bag though, because we need to get some different
you really have to have your little your armamentarium of sunscreen. Sometimes for women, I say a powdered sunscreen is good. Because time you put a base of a SPF 14, put your foundation on, that generally gives you good coverage. And you do your setting spray, but then you can just use like a powdered sunscreen to touch up. And then you want to have like maybe a little topical steroid there to sort of help, for your sunburn. And then other things that could be helpful, which is not necessarily associated with skin, will be your nail polish. I tell patients always walk around with that to help with your little ladders that you may get.
Right, because the stocking's protecting the skin.
Yeah, and then I want the stockings to stay on because sometimes when you get a couple ladders, you want to take it off and you throw it away. But then I want the stockings to stay on because that gives more coverage from the sun. So any little ladder, just take the little clear nail polish and just kind of stop it so you don't have to take those stockings off too early.
We are going to have you back post-carnival for when we get the sunburn and have to recover.
Sure.
But we certainly appreciate the advice you've given us this morning. Of course, joining us this morning, Dr. Naomi Dolly, dermatologist, giving us some tips on how we can battle the sun come Monday and Tuesday. But for now, we're taking a break and coming back with some info you need for your furry friends. The sun goes down. Oh, some good stuff.